Welcome to another episode. So today the swirling rumors are that President Cyril Ramaphosa is planning to exit as the head of state following South Africa's hosting of the G20. And what that would mean for the ANC, the state, and our democracy. This is not just about one man leaving, it's about how fragile power is in the ANC, how factional deal-making shapes state institutions, and how ordinary citizens get lost in the shuffle. By now, Ramaphosa's tenure has never been stable. We all know that. He's inherited the job from that brilliant tribalist called Jacob Zuma after his resignation and has had to contend with deeply entrenched patronage networks and institutional decay. Well, that was according to what we had seen during the Zondo Commission, but this Madlanga Commission has proven otherwise, where we actually realized that Zuma's crop were just a bunch of thieves. You know, thieves know one thing. In order to steal, you need to have something that they can steal, but these are facts. Nonetheless, he was re-elected ANC leader in 2022 amid controversy. You know, the so-called farm gate revolutions, among others. In the 2024 general election, the ANC lost its outright majority. A turning point, the ANC now governs as part of a government of national unity involving many other parties. But here's the interesting part. You will conveniently remember that during the Zondo Commission, the ANC had a majority. Therefore, they could sort of navigate the way things were done in the commission. They could also navigate the way things were done in the ad hoc committees in parliament and the various other committees that would pertain to the Zondo Commission in parliament, right? So they had a majority of about 60-something%. They got into the Zondo Commission with an overwhelming majority. And after getting into the Zondo Commission with about an odd 60-odd% under Cyril Ramaphosa, because he came in 2017, remember, during the Ramaphosa era, they ran their 2019 election and they went down from an odd 60-ish% to about 57%. That was the decline. But the bottom line is they went in and went out of the Zondo Commission with a majority. And then came the 2024 election, where they collapsed, obviously, to 39.8%. The interesting thing is, with this Madlanga Commission, they enter with a minority, where they no longer hold the majority. Yes, they still do tend to have power in terms of the Madlanga Commission and Soviet Lekhanyani's influence there. But when it comes to the parliamentary majority, they've only got about 40%, meaning that things aren't going to be as easy as they were with the Zondo Commission. That loss of majority exposes the ANC's internal fractures. The party no longer commands unchallenged authority. Its internal cohesion is strained. So if Ramaphosa is considering stepping down, he does so in a moment of weakness, not strength. But why would he want to leave? I'm sure many of you would be thinking that President Cyril Ramaphosa has got a cushy job. He lives somewhere, you know, in Mandla Mpofu House, which is the president's headquarters in terms of, or head residence, you know, and he's just having things easy. Well, not really. But we can only speculate, and here are the few dynamics that make sense as to why he would want to leave. Legitimacy and wariness. He may fear that continuing will deepen damage to his reputation and his legacy that doesn't exist, that his failures will overshadow his gains. Well, I don't recall too many gains, but factional heat, pressures from opposing factions within the ANC. Example, those aligned with the RET, even though majority of those have gone to Mkhonto weSizwe, or proponents of, you know, anti-DA calls, maybe squeezing him. All is possible. You will know and remember that the COSATU and the SACP have made the call about breaking the tripartite alliance. So we're literally witnessing the ANC break down before our eyes. A strategy of exit over crisis rather than being forced out by a motion of no confidence or internal coup. Remember that big red nuclear button Helen spoke of, as well as stepping away on his terms may be seen as less chaotic, though still destabilizing. But whatever his calculation, walking away would leave a gaping vacuum. Here's where many commentators stop. But from a deeper view, I see three domains that would be thrown into chaos. One, the ANC's leadership collapse. The report on the top 7 that have no clear plan if Ramaphosa quits, no known transitional roadmap. This is perhaps the first time we've seen an ANC not preparing a next leader. We can't call Paul Mashatile a next leader. The natural successor notion is obviously Deputy President Spokes Mashatile, but there is talk of Gwede Mantashe holding the fort until the next ANC conference. My sources claim a secret pact, as well as it could have Mantashe first and then Mashatile in 2027. That scenario as would bring Mantashe as an interim president would be an abdication of Mashatile's own ambition and could spark conflict. The party would fracture in open view, which it already has, if we're quite honest. As I mentioned, communist RETs and the anti-DAs are naturally leaving. But here's the deeper risk. Once the interim becomes contested, the ANC's fractions will splinter. Each will fight for control over the state and its levers. The spoils are enormous. The next few weeks would matter more than the next 5 years. The institutional drift, state capture redux. Ramaphosa, for all his flaws, has acted as a rudder, sometimes resisting outright capture by certain interests. His exit would remove a central counterweight. Factions that were kept in check might strike. Key institutions such as the Chapter 9 institutions going on to the NPA, the judiciary, oversight bodies could become targets of political realignment or capture. Therefore, we could possibly see another case of state capture. Now, let's link that to another story. The upcoming process to appoint a new NDPP is already contentious. Whoever takes over the presidency in the vacuum will face immense pressure from inside and outside to reward allies, consolidate control. 3, democracy, parole, legitimacy, elections, public disillusionment. South Africa has already lost trust. The ANC's vote share is declining, and the party is no longer unassailable. I mean, South Africa has lost it. You look at our trade relations with the US, we still don't have an ambassador who speaks the South African case in Washington. We don't seem like we're going to make a move. All I know from the rumors I've heard from my people is it seems like the ANC want to send a colored gentleman. The name just slipped me, but it's a colored comrade. And from what I know, the US Embassy is not having that. You know, they aren't in support of having a NIDA Cater representing the South African cause overseas. So this boils down to one thing. If leadership changes midterm without clarity, it will fuel narratives of internal rot, which have always been there, to be quite honest, of elites picking and choosing power behind doors. Opposition parties will smell blood. The DA, EFF, and that tribalistic ultra-military IFP, otherwise known as the Mkhonto weSizwe, will pounce. Not just in parliament, but in public perception. The public will ask, did we ever truly choose the head of state, or was this a game of internal party politics? Now, here's where I push the needle. Ramaphosa's legacy is more complicated than reform versus corruption. Many praise him as the reformer against state capture, but the record is inconsistent. I mean, just look at what we have. We've got a Madlanga Commission where there have been allegations of CR17's campaign being funded by the Big Five cartels. And I need to highlight allegations, and that is just allegedly. Some policing of corruption has just become perpetuated. But Others have argued his moves were half measures, leaving major networks intact underneath. He tolerated too many risky compromises with factional power brokers. The step-aside rule, even as a tool, has been accused of selective application. So, if he exits unceremoniously, it betrays a failure to institutionalize reform. It would show that personal authority, not systems, was his main. 2. The ANC's structural rot is deeper than any one leader. The power of patronage, of factional slates, of transactional politics, these are baked into the party. When you have secret pacts, i.e. Mantashe, Mashatile, scuttling transparency, the party is no longer about ideology or public service. It's about capturing state machinery. Ramaphosa's looming exit is merely a symptom, not the cause. Many internal critics have been sidelined for years. More reformist voices have not prevailed. Ordinary people are collateral damage, while elites figure jockey ordinary South Africans, especially the poor, unemployed, marginalized, will suffer from paralysis in governance. Service delivery, economic planning, procurement all get destabilized when leadership changes, especially amongst this corrupt cohort. Even more dangerous, when legitimacy breaks, social unrest is a real possibility. Now, what should happen and what would I be wary of? If I were advising an anchor or opposition or civil society, these would be my prescriptions. Demand transparency. The public and ANC rank and file deserve to see any exit plan, timeline, and process. Any move in secrecy invites suspicion, therefore leading to uncertainty, therefore leading to investors withdrawing their investments that have already been getting pulled out of South Africa due to speculation of would we be having that uncharismatic guy called Paul Mashatile as a possible president. Let us protect institutional integrity, such as the National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA, the courts. Chapter 9 institutions must be shielded during such possible transitions. Their heads and independence need explicit guarantees. Mandate continuity. Whoever walks in needs a publicly affirmed mandate, clear goals, deliverables, accountability, so governance doesn't collapse into ad hoc factional rule. Empower oversight and civil society. A transitional watchdog coalition of civil society media and opposition must monitor the possible handover if such does happen. Because remember, there's talks of this handover happening after the G20, as well as for the ANC. This should be a moment that they use to reform the ANC. If the party is entering a leadership contest, it must be more than slates, which it won't. We know that because, well, these guys live on patronage, brown envelopes, and literally buying everything in their way to make sure it either sings Free Palestine or looks at wherever they can get their next sesame. So if Ramaphosa does indeed leave after the G20 scheduled for later this year, November, December, what would unfold is more than a headline glitch. It's a crisis of faith in not just the ANC, which we have known, but in South Africa as a country. The delivery of governance cannot depend on the personality of a president, especially a divided and weakened one. We stand at a crossroad. Will the ANC crack under its contradictions and implode? Or will a new guard emerge that finally commits to institutional renewal, accountability, and rebuilding public trust? The coming weeks to months will be telling. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have enjoyed and watched till the end, please, 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 pretty please, do share this video. Let us share this video amongst our friends. Let us share this video with 10 other people. It really helps in pushing up the numbers and sharing the truth. It's tedious making these videos. So the least you could do is just to share and subscribe. As well as you can support the channel by signing up to be a member. This has been today's episode and see you soon. God bless.